Look at those big old canyons.
Alright, so my name is Donis.
Donis? All
Yes. This will take about 35 minutes. We have 3 stops, like I told you. This right here, surrender deck, and then our last stop's going to be the kamikaze attack site. Before we get started, we have to take care of a little bit of housekeeping. You need to know that we are a nonprofit, so that means we get no state or federal funding, which means that all proceeds, including your ticket costs, go right back into preserving the ship for future generations. So we thank you for your support. Photography is unrestricted. Take as many photos and videos as you wish while on board the ship. Also, feel free to ask me questions as we go. And then last but not least, I know you were given a safety briefing on the pier before you boarded. Just as a reminder, as you're traversing the ship today, watch your head, shoulders, knees, and toes.
Okay.
All right, let's get started. So construction of the USS Missouri began on January 6, 1941 at the New York Navy Yard in Brooklyn, New York. She was the last of 4 Iowa-class battleships to be built and the last American battleship ever completed. She's 887 feet 3 inches long, which is almost the same length as 3 American football fields if you lay them end zone to end zone to end zone.
Wow.
From the keel to the top of the mast, she stands 216 feet 6 inches, which is equivalent to a 20-story building. Her beam, or the width at the widest point, is 108 feet 2 inches. Now, ships of that era were built pretty slim for a particular reason, that reason being the Panama Canal. And that day, the locks of the Panama Canal were only 110 feet apart, which is hard to imagine today. They're much, much wider. But do that math in your head really quick. 110 feet minus 108 feet 2 inches. And you get less than about 11 inches a foot. Of 11 inches of clearance on either side, right? So many scrubs, many paint jobs, right? So she weighed in at 58,000 displacement tons when fully loaded. Of course, today she's not going to war, so she's not fully loaded. She weighs about 45,000 tons today. The fastest recorded speed was 33 knots. That's about 40 miles per hour land speed, which doesn't seem very fast if you're driving down the highway in your car. But when you're a 58,000 ton, 20-story building in the middle of the ocean, it's very fast. So they were definitely built for speed. All right, so the Missouri was launched on January 29th, 1944. It was christened by Mary Margaret Truman, the 19-year-old daughter of then Senator from the state of Missouri, Harry S. Truman. On June 16th, 1944, she was commissioned by the U.S. Navy and sent right out for her World War II service, where she supported the invasions of Iwo Jima and Okinawa, as well as some campaigns against mainland Japan. And then on September 2nd, 1945, after 10 long years of world conflict, the surrender of the Japanese forces on the deck just over there formally ended World War II. In 1950, the Missouri was called back to active service. She served 2 tours in the Korean War. And then with her service in Korea done, she was decommissioned and sent to the mothball fleet in Bremerton, Washington. She stayed there for the next 29 years. And then in 1984, they began an extensive modernization process. The ship was updated with modern weaponry and technology systems, as well as some more modern and comfortable living spaces for the sailors as well. On May 10th, 1986, she was then recommissioned by the Navy, and a few years later was sent to the Persian Gulf, where she supported Operation Earnest Will and Operation Desert Shield. Now, on January 17th, 1991, the Missouri was the very first ship to fire Tomahawk missiles at the opening of Operation Desert Storm. Following the Gulf War, she came here to Pearl Harbor as part of Operation Remembrance, which was the commemoration of the 50th anniversary of the attacks on Pearl Harbor, December 7th, 1941. A few short months later, on March 31st, 1992, the Missouri was then decommissioned for a final time and sent right back to the mothballs in Washington. But evidenced by our presence here today, her story didn't end there. Thanks to the quiet but diligent effort of the USS Missouri Memorial Association, our nonprofit, she returned here to Pearl Harbor once again in 1998, but this time with a new mission. She opened as a memorial for the very first tours on January 29, 1999, which was 55 years to the day after her launching. So what a great 55th birthday party she had, right?
Yeah.
Today, the Missouri stands bow to bow with the USS Arizona, forming the bookends of World War II for the United States, the beginning and the end. She's an international symbol of peace that inspires and educates those of all ages and all nationalities who visit us on a daily basis. And she does this while also standing watch over the fallen of Pearl Harbor. All right. Any questions about the history of the ship itself before we move into everybody's favorite topic?
Nope.
Got no questions? All right, we're going to move right into the guns then. So the main battery is made up of 9 of those 16-inch 50 caliber Mark 7 guns. There are 3 in each turret and 3 turrets. 2 you see here at the front of the ship and 1 at the back or the aft of the ship. Each gun barrel weighs 239,000 pounds, which is about the same as an American about as a NASA space shuttle. That's the weight. It's the length. The length of one barrel is about the same as an American Yellow School Bus. So that's just some perspective on the size of the barrel itself that you can see.
Yes.
Now the barrels could operate independently. They could be raised and lowered independently. They could also be fired independently. The turrets would rotate either to the starboard side here or the port side for firing. To prepare to fire, they lowered the barrels down to +5 degrees, almost flat, and as soon as they were loaded, they could raise them up to the 45-degree firing elevation in under 4 seconds. The maximum rate of fire was 2 shots per minute, meaning that each gun could get a shot off every 30 seconds.
Damn.
The maximum accurate range of fire was 23 nautical miles. Now that's 26 statute miles.
Yeah.
Well beyond the horizon. So they couldn't see their target from that distance, from the ship at that distance, but they were very accurate at that range. The trajectory speed of the projectiles leaving the barrels was 2,500 feet per second, which is 2 times the speed of sound or Mach 2 speed. So that target that was 23 nautical miles away would be hit in about 91 seconds. And by that time, these guns could have gotten off 3 more shots. Wow, right? There were 2 types of projectiles fired by these guns. The first was an armor-piercing round. That dolly right there holds an example of one of those. Those weighed 2,700 pounds. Those were used to penetrate armor plating or concrete bunkers. The second type were high-capacity explosives weighing about 1,900 pounds. Those were used for land targets, and they left craters that were 50 feet wide and 20 feet deep. Lots of damage. So when you're firing huge projectiles like that weigh almost 3,000 pounds, it takes a lot of gunpowder, a lot of firepower. 6 bags of gunpowder to be exact. Each bag weighed 110 pounds.
Damn.
So that's 660 pounds of gunpowder for every shot from every gun every 30 seconds. Which then, of course, begs the question, how much manpower is that going to take, right?
Yeah.
At minimum, it took 77 men to work each one of the 3 turrets.
77 men.
Minimum.
For each
barrel. Turret. No, not each barrel.
Oh,
each
turret. Okay.
So this one and
Yeah,
the other
for-
one?
Yep, and then the
For
one
every
back.
3.
Yep. And so max, they could fit 110 men inside one of those. So any given time, there's an average of about 90 to 96 men working each turret. What you see here is just the top level of this one. It goes down 5 more. Each one is 6 decks deep. And that is still very tight quarters for 100 men. But somehow they made it work.
Damn.
Crazy.
Wow.
All right, so now I'm going to give you our final, but my very favorite fact about these guns.
Okay.
Imagine, if you would, all 9 guns. They're all trained over here on the starboard side. They are all firing at once, over and over again, right? How much do you think the ship is rocking this way in the water?
Oh boy.
You would think a lot, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's a lot
Yeah,
of percussive
yeah.
power, right?
Yeah.
The answer is actually 0.
0?
0. Each one of
Really?
those guns is fitted with a recoil counter recoil system, which made the recoil very smooth and the ship stayed steady in the water, even if all 9 guns fired simultaneously. It's very cool to watch it happen, which you can do if you want to. There's a video, a documentary that we play all day long on repeat. And at the end of the tour, if you want to see that happening, ask me.
Okay.
And I'll tell you where to find it. As well as in that same documentary, they show them loading from within inside.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it's very cool.
Wow.
Yeah. Do you have any questions about anything?
Yeah, is those like the white thing there? That's the
Yeah.
powder bag?
Yes, so I was gonna, as we got closer, I was gonna tell you about that. So
Okay.
that is a replica of one of the 6 powder bags. Each of those canisters held 3 bags. So you're loading one of those huge projectiles and 6 of those bags, 2 of those. Yeah,
Damn.
every 30 seconds, less than every 30 seconds.
Well, there's the push rod right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the clean. That's actually the clean
Oh,
out
is that
from
the
this
cleaner?
end. Yeah, and they would
Yeah.
lower the barrels down and they would push the end from this side. So the ramrod to load is inside the
Inside.
turrets. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Imagine 100 men.
I know, and no air conditioning.
Yeah, I know.
Even
Yeah.
when the rest of the interior of the ship got updated with
There's the bags.
with air conditioning in the 80s, the turrets still did not get.
There's the bunker penetrator. Yeah. That's crazy.
On the side of the turret, let's talk about this as we walk by. You see that map there? That's a map of Kuwait.
Oh, okay.
So the 3 shells painted on there represent the 3 guns in this turret. That number is the number of rounds fired from this one turret during the Gulf War in 1990 or 1991. Each turret has its own specific number. Yeah. We're moving on to the deck. Since this group is here, this larger group, we may have to go over on the other side, but I'll give you time to come back over here.
Okay.
1931年、上海にいた時、テロに遭いましたね。足をね、不自由にしていたんですね、家康です。この人がね、皆様と同じように歩いて、登って、そしてここまで来るまで何分かかるかわからないとアメリカのね、持っているか、富士に決められません。リハーサルを行いましたね。水兵さん、いきなりね、
It was September 2nd, 1945, and it was an overcast Sunday morning. The Missouri was anchored in the middle of Tokyo Bay, Japan, surrounded by over 250 other Allied ships. Now, when you go back over to the other side, there's a photo that's on the side of the tour. I'm going to be referring to that photo quite a bit.
Okay.
So when we go back over there, make sure you get a good look at it, okay? So the officers aboard this ship and from some of those other 250 ships, their officers were lined up on the other side of the gun turret, all had assigned places. They knew where they were supposed to be the night before. And they were Johnny on the spot. They were there on time. Japanese delegation ran a few minutes late, and they boarded down the other side, the starboard side where we walked by. They came up that same ladder on that side that we just climbed up. They took their assigned places. Now, when everybody was in their assigned places, then and only then did General MacArthur, Admiral Nimitz, and Admiral Halsey exit the Admiral's quarters, which is just right there on the next level. They came down a ladder just like this one on the other side, and they took their assigned places. Now, you'll see Admiral Halsey. He's number 7 in the photo. He took his place with the other officers. This was the flagship, and he was the admiral aboard. You won't see Nimitz. He's just right out of the frame, standing behind the microphone and the table with the other signatories. But General MacArthur stepped to the microphone. At 9:02 a.m., General MacArthur began a very brief opening statement just to get the ceremony started. Now, the Japanese contingency was expecting to hear about an incoming regime built on vengeance, which was fair enough. They didn't know what was going to happen to them after this was over, if they would even be put to death immediately after. They didn't know. But they had been humiliated and had to surrender for the first time in Japan's history ever. Okay? So they were expecting to hear about vengeance. So imagine their surprise when that is not what MacArthur talked about, but rather he spoke of freedom, justice, tolerance, and peace. Now they were surprised, but also greatly relieved when that message was relayed to them by their interpreter. He's number 27 in the photo, Mr. Kase. He worked for the foreign ministry in Japan. He was the only person on board that day that spoke both languages. And he could speak English fluently because he was Harvard educated. So he'd lived in the United States. So he was expecting vindication. That's what he thought about Americans. So he also gained a new respect for General MacArthur that day. When those brief remarks were finished, MacArthur invited the first of the 2 delegates from Japan who were going to sign the 2 copies of the instrument of surrender on the table. The first to sign was number 22 in the photo, Foreign Minister Shigemitsu, who signed on behalf of Emperor Hirohito and the government of Japan. The second to sign was number 24, General Umezu, who signed on behalf of the Imperial Army of Japan. Now, both of them signed knowing that it meant the unconditional surrender of their nation, and again, not knowing what was going to happen to them. They were finished signing They went back to their places. MacArthur himself approached the table to sign. Now, he wasn't signing as a representative of the United States or the United States military, but rather he signed in his role as the Supreme Commander of the Allied forces. He was the one accepting that surrender on behalf of all of the Allies. As he was coming to the table, though, he called behind him to stand. The whole time he was there, very tired-looking gentlemen. There's two of them. They're number 2 and number 3 in the photo. Number 2 was American Lieutenant General Wainwright, who had been captured in Corregidor in the Philippines. Number 3 was British Lieutenant General Percival, who'd been captured in Singapore. Both of those gentlemen had survived more than 3 years in POW camps, which was nearly unheard of. Most men died within 3 to 6 months of entering one of those camps. Now, you see in the photo, you will see how gaunt looking both of them are. Both stood over 6 feet tall. Neither weighed even 100 pounds that day. They both weighed about 95 pounds. They had been released from captivity only 5 days before this. They were special guests, and they were there to represent all the POWs of this war. So MacArthur went to the table. He sat down. He took out of his pocket 6 pens. He used all of them to sign the 2 copies of that document. Douglas with 1, Mac with the 2nd, Arthur with the 3rd, and the same with the other 3 on the other copy. And like any good politician who signs an important document such as this, using multiple pens, he gave all of them away as gifts, and the first 2 of them went to those 2 former POWs. So he was finished signing. They all stepped back. MacArthur went back to the microphone to call the representatives from the Allied countries who had stood together in the Pacific. Now, the first to sign was the representative of the United States. Admiral Nimitz was given that honor. And then the representatives from the other countries signed in this order: China, Great Britain, USSR, Australia, Canada, France, the Netherlands, then finally New Zealand. The ceremony wrapped up at about 9:25 a.m. And remember, he went to the microphone at 9:02. So that means it only took 23 minutes to end what some would say was the bloodiest war in human history. Rough estimates have it that about 69 million people were either dead or missing by the end of World War II. That's in both the European and the Pacific fronts. Another very high number you've probably never heard is that 50 million of that 69 million were civilians. Innocent women and children and men who had nothing at all to do with the fighting. Now, the ceremony is over. On paper, this war is officially over, right? On the ship, they know that. Even very shortly after, mainland Japan finds out as soon as the ceremony was over. MacArthur stepped over to Admiral Halsey and said something like, "Start them up." He then, in turn, alerted the Allied Air Armada, and then there were hundreds, close to 1,000 Allied planes flying over mainland Japan. So they know it. The rest of the world, however, has no way of knowing. Remember, there's no internet, there's no television in people's homes in 1945. So the rest of the world's waiting at home by radio. So a little bit later, MacArthur went to the radio room here aboard the ship to let the rest of the world know that this war is indeed finally finished. He started that 7.5-minute radio broadcast with these words: "Today the guns are silent. A great tragedy has ended. A great victory has been won. The skies no longer rain death. The seas bear only commerce. Men everywhere walk upright in the sunlight. The entire world lies quietly at peace." Now, he ended that 7.5 minutes speaking directly to the American people. Just paraphrasing this time, he told them, "Your sons and daughters have served well and faithfully. They've made you proud, and they are finally homeward bound." And the last 4 words he said on that radio broadcast were, "Treat them with care." So that ends our story, but there are some things you need to notice. We'll walk back on the other side, and I'll show you the things that you need to take pictures and take note of. First, of course, is going to be that plaque laid in the deck over there. That's at the exact spot where that table stood, where they did the signing. So it's there to commemorate the important historic event that happened on this spot. It's also there to represent all the men and women who paid the ultimate cost for freedom and peace. The case over here has a replica copy of the Instrument of Surrender, along with MacArthur's opening speech, the very short one, and then photos of all the signers in the order that they signed. Here's the photo that I was referencing. Take a few minutes, about 2 or 3 minutes, take some photos, and I'll wait for you. You can step inside that door if you'd like and get a peek into the entertainment space of the captain's in-port cabin.
All right.
The captain only stayed on this level when the ship was in port. They were at sea, he had to be at bridge level at all times. Bridge, you can see the at-sea cabin up there. Bridge level.
Hasta que salgan, nos metemos allí. Es donde estaba el capitán, el captain.
We need to get moving.
Man, that's very nice in there.
Kind of fancy smancy.
Yeah, but they fixed the rug and all that, right?
Oh yeah,
Assuming-
that was when it became a museum. This is
Oh,
staged.
okay.
There's not much in there that's original. The furniture is original.
Oh yeah, the furniture's orange.
Especially like the built-ins. And
Yeah.
Stuff like that. Anything that's wood in there was added either in the 80s or when it became a museum.
Okay.
So our final stop's going to be the kamikaze attack site. It's a very interesting story. So. Do you guys mind standing in the sun or are you want shade?
Wherever you like.
Okay, let's go over here so we can actually kind of be on the right side.
ちょうどね、こちらのね、パネルのところ、あちらのところにちょっと足跡があるんですが、あちら側からね、ご遺体を海に返す。でね、またちゃんとね、このご遺体には、
Right here by the rail.
All right.
Get as far enough away. We won't all be talking over each other. But close enough you can kind of see the deck. Okay. So do you know what the word kamikaze means?
No.
All right. So in school, were you taught that it meant something like suicide bomber?
Oh, okay.
Particularly Japanese suicide bomber is what we were taught, right? The word has nothing to do with that though, at all. But the only access to that word that our textbooks writers had was after World War II. So that's all they know or all they knew to write about. So that's where that modern connotation came from. Now, the word actually originated in the late 13th century. In the years 1274 and 1281, Mongolian forces attempted to invade Japan. Both times, however, major typhoons came along, dispersing those Mongolian fleets. There were no invasions. Now, the Japanese people took that to be divine intervention. Happens once, coincidence maybe happens twice, to the same group of invaders in the exact same way. In a matter of, 7 years? God's protecting us from invasion by the Mongolians. So they named the typhoons kamikaze. In the Japanese language, if you take that word apart, kami, when added to another word, means divine or of God. Kaze means wind. So the word just simply means divine wind. Okay? So now that you have that background information, we're going to go back to World War II. It was late in the war. Japan had suffered critical military defeats. Their industrial capacity to wage war had also greatly diminished. They were nearing the end of their ability to continue any kind of fight at all, but the Japanese government was reluctant to surrender. They were a proud people, and remember, they had never in their entire history surrendered to an enemy before. So of course they didn't want to start now. So they devised a way to reincarnate the idea or the spirit of kamikaze, but in a different way. They did that utilizing young Japanese men, usually in their teens. They were given very little training, and then they were stuck in the planes laden with bombs and told to fly out over the Allied warships, intentionally crashing into one and doing as much damage as possible. But of course, they're going to die in the process. So that's where that connotation of kamikaze being suicide bombers started. So starting in October 1944 at the Battle of Leyte Gulf into the spring of 1945 at Okinawa, there were relentless kamikaze attacks, so much so that it's estimated that in that 7 or 8 month period, 4,000 young Japanese men were sacrificed to that effort.
Wow.
It's also important to know, though, it was a completely voluntary service. No one forced them. No one drafted them. They all volunteered.
Cleared.
Yeah. They considered it an honor to die in battle for one's country.
Yeah.
Now, remember, I also told you the Missouri was at Okinawa supporting the invasion of that island. On the afternoon of April 11th, 1945, some crew members on the deck here saw off the starboard side, flying very low over the water and heading directly for the side of the ship, a single Japanese Zero. And they know what's about to happen if they don't do something about it fast. So there was intense anti-aircraft fire from several guns aboard the ship trying to take the plane out of the air and get it in the ocean, right? Now they did hit it. It was even on fire by the end of it, but the pilot was able to pull up just in time to indeed strike the side of the ship just over there at about 2:43 p.m.
Wow.
Now, miraculously, that bomb didn't detonate. The plane and the bomb fell harmlessly down into the water, except for one part of the plane. The right wing sheared off and was catapulted up onto the deck over there, spilling aviation fuel everywhere. Now, what do you get with aviation fuel?
Fire.
And guns, yeah, you get a fire. So the fire was so massive that observers from other ships in the area thought surely the Missouri was going down. But thanks to the quick action of the damage control team aboard, they had that fire out in 3 minutes. And then they had another miracle because, of course, if something like that happens, you have to ensure the safety of all your men. So they had a quick muster, got them together, 0 casualties among Missouri's crew. There weren't even any injuries, except for minor burns from putting the fire out. That was it. So upon finding, the only death that day on board the ship was the pilot.
Pilot.
But as they were clearing up the wreckage from the wing, they found the pilot's body tucked up under it. He had also been tossed up onto the deck. Now, upon hearing about that, the captain of the ship, the first captain of the ship too, who was Captain Callahan, he ordered some crew members to take the pilot's body below to the dispensary to be identified and to be readied for burial at sea the next morning. Well, the crew didn't like that idea at all, because in naval tradition, burial at sea means with full military honors. They didn't want to give this pilot any kind of honors. He was the enemy. He had just been trying to kill them all. So they wanted to toss the body overboard and call it a day. But Captain Callahan was a man of compassion. He took that as an opportunity to teach his young crew a lesson in humanity and humility. After all, he told them, he was doing for his country what we're trying to do for ours. And you have to remember, boys, the dead enemy is no longer your enemy. He was someone's son, probably someone's brother. He may have even been someone's father. He was a human being, and we will treat him as such. So, of course, they obeyed. In fact, that night, 3 signalmen stayed up all night long, hand-stitching together a makeshift Japanese rising sun flag out of scraps of old signal flags and bed sheets that they found. Because another naval tradition is during a burial at sea, you shroud the person's body in their nation's flag. Well, this is an American ship at war with Japan. They didn't have Japanese flags aboard, so they made one. They came to the deck just over there the next morning to hold that burial at sea. I don't know if you noticed the shadow footprints on the deck as we walked by, but the 5 over here by this air intake represent where 5 Marines stood to give a 15-gun salute, which isn't quite the 21-gun salute. A chaplain said a prayer and a bugler played taps as 6 pallbearers gently lowered that young pilot's body into the water. Now, any other day of the year, that would have made the newspapers in the United States, because not only did the Missouri shrug off a kamikaze attack as if it's nothing more than a fender bender, but they also gave the enemy an honorable burial at sea, and that was not done. Now, that day, however, April 12th, 1945, something bigger was going on stateside that overshadowed this news. That was the day that the American people got the word that President Franklin Delano Roosevelt had died. And there was a new president being sworn in the exact same day. That new president was none other than Harry Truman, which brings the story full circle because, remember, his daughter was the one that christened the ship the day she was launched. He was even present at that launching as well. So a few months go by and the Japanese certainly do have to surrender, and they have to choose a ship to send to Tokyo Bay and host the surrender ceremony. So if you're president of the United States, which ship are you going to insist that they choose? yours, the one with the name of your beloved state. That's the only reason that this ship was chosen at all, and the only reason she's as famous as she is today. Kind of cool, right?
Yeah.
So these 3 storyboards right here, and there's another one right there. They'll tell you more about the kamikaze. That far one from us has more information about the burial at sea. It has 2 pictures of the pilot on it. Remember I told you they tried to identify him? They
Yeah.
weren't able to that night. He had nothing on him with which to identify him, but years later his documents became unclassified and the country started to share information. They found out it was Petty Officer 2nd Class Setsuo Ishino. He had turned 19 years old just the week prior. Now that first photo is him in his uniform. The second one is a family photo. He was a toddler, about 2 years old in the photo, and you'll be able to spot him very quickly. He's the one in front, leaning on grandmother's knee. And ironically, he's holding in his hands a toy airplane. Now the middle one right there has a famous photo on it taken from way up in the superstructure by Baker on board the ship, who is also an amateur photographer. He got a once-in-a-lifetime shot of that plane a split second before it made contact with the side of the ship. So make sure you see that. And then the mooring pins right here between these last 2. If you look over the rail there, on the side of the ship are 2 pieces of black and yellow tape. Between them is a dent. That's the fender bender. That's the
Okay.
only lasting damage done, and it is still worn as a badge of honor today.
Wow.
So, because we were hit by a kamikaze plane and we survived. So,
Yeah.
all right, so I'm at the end of my time. But again, I want to thank you guys
Thank you
for
very
giving me
much.
the chance to share the Mighty Mo's legacy with you. So I appreciate you, and I hope you have a great rest of your visit. If you need a restroom, the men's room is on the other side of the super. See, the ladies' room is
Yeah.
right here. Men's room is just opposite on the other side. There's a
All
water
right.
fountain there too if you're thirsty. If you're interested in those gun turrets, there's a ladder in the back of this one you can climb up and get a peek inside it. So it's kind of cool. And then that video that I was telling you about, at the end, this right here is the door going down to the museum space.
Okay.
Where you come out is going to be the officer's wardroom, and it's back on this level. So when you go into the wardroom, if you turn right, you'll see the lounge and the lights are off down there. If you go on the other side of the huge model of the ship, there's a documentary that plays on loop all day long. Somewhere in that documentary, it shows them firing all 9 of these guns
Okay.
at once. So if you wanted to take time to watch it, it's about an hour and a half long. You may not want it, and that's fine. But that's where you can find it. If you
We'll
want-
look it up.
Yeah. Oh, you can. It's a History Channel, I think.
Okay.
All right. Also, Google MacArthur's speech to the radio
Yeah, the
broadcast.
radio
YouTube.
Okay.
As it, I've listened. It's great. So, anyway, thank you again.
Thank
Have
you
a
very
great
much.
day.
Very much for
I
your time.
appreciate
Thank
you
you.
so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much. Aquí es donde se dobló. Es donde se dobló. Pues ahí está esta historia, caballeros. Espero que les haya gustado. Vamos a parar este video aquí porque se está haciendo largo. Este es el USS Battleship, el piso 1. Y vamos a hacer el piso 2. Vamos a bajar para el piso 2 y todavía está el piso 3. Voy a tratar de hacer un video por cada piso. A ver si tengo suficiente pila. Gracias. Subscribe, like and comment. Y esta historia está fregona. Y si unos días vienen, vengan aquí. Y muchas gracias.